Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Alyssa Corum and Justin Nielsen here to break down the action from today's session. It was a bit of a mixed day. We're going to talk about our take on what's going on with the major indexes, and also we're going to analyze 3 stocks for your radar. Justin?
Yeah, so we will go ahead and talk about Crocs today. The shoemaker is looking strong with a breakout today. Also, Brooks Automation in the semiconductor space, and we'll end with a new IPO. Got to keep our eyes on the new blood. Figs, one of the scrubs makers for lifestyle and health.
Well, we'll get to that, but first, a look at the NASDAQ to kick things off here. Another gain today, the NASDAQ finishing up about 0.75% here. The S&P 500 up 0.2%. On the downside, we had the Dow down about 0.25%, and the Russell 2000 down 0.3%. So, Justin, what do you think about the NASDAQ continuing to climb here? Are we going to continue to power through these prior highs, or could that be a resistance level?
Well, that's the question. That's the big question, Allie, because, we have been in this range-bound market. We've gotten above the 14,000 level a couple times, and after a few days, we get turned away. So now that we're back up above the 14,000 level, the question is exactly as you posed. Do we continue from here, or is this another area where we're going to find resistance? So that's one of the things that we just have to keep our eye on. So what do you do for your portfolio? You are going to be still taking a look at breakouts, reversals, if and when they occur. But you're also just going to be aware of keeping an eye on the market action, and specifically the industry groups that are moving and sectors, so that you're just in phase. It can be very tough. Very easy to get chopped up in a market like this when growth has been out of favor. It's been a lot of the cyclicals working, not our typical style, but with the NASDAQ coming on a little bit stronger now, you can see the relative strength line improving versus the S&P 500. So even though the S&P 500 is at new highs, and look, it was down for most of the day, but it had a rally at the end of the day to kind of close up. But a lot of the S&P 500 kind of areas of strength, materials, steel stocks, miners, those were hit a little bit harder today. But the energy is still looking strong. Oil and gas is the number 2 group, the explorers. So there's still a lot of strength there. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, by contrast, whereas the S&P 500 is making new highs, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, while not far from its highs, has been pulling back to its 50-day moving average line. Didn't have much room to go to get there because, again, it's been trending so nicely. But it's still worth noting that there does seem to be a little bit more of that rotation, and software and semiconductors are 2 areas that seem to be benefiting.
Definitely. And this is a key level to watch here for the Dow, and a potentially significant week for the NASDAQ. We'll have to see what happens as the week unfolds. But now, looking beneath the surface, Crocs, ticker CROX, on our radar. We added a leaderboard this morning with a gain of 3.6% for the day, breaking out of a flat base that can be seen on the weekly chart here, Justin. And it earned an RS line blue dot on this breakout today.
And you brought this up on IBD Live today, and so you and I were chatting about it. Yeah, I mean, what's not to like? It's got a flat base. The 50-day or 10-week moving average line has been, rising very strongly. The one concern is this extended? I mean, look at that move that it's had from, the pandemic, really. And this is a stock that was really decimated for a while. Now, this is one that I played, 13 years ago or something. I've got a 20-year-old and 16-year-old daughter that were wearing Crocs when they were, they would never do that now, but they were wearing them when they were little, and we were putting those little princess gibbets in the holes and stuff like that. Well, now Crocs is kind of trying to reinvent itself with a lot of collaborations. You've got a collaboration with Justin Bieber, you've got Bad Bunny, you've got Post Malone and kind of the music world. Also, instead of putting little princesses on your gibbets, they have a collaboration with a Russian punk punk rock band, and you can put metal chains and spikes in your little holes. Or you've got the luxury brand, and you're going to have to help me with this because you know a little bit more about it. What is it?
Balenciaga.
Thank you so
Balenciaga.
much. Yes. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm not a stiletto buyer myself, and I couldn't imagine buying $1,000 Crocs stilettos, but those are possibly coming out in 2022. So they've got a lot of collaborations in place, and more importantly, I mean, it's translating. What they're doing is translating to numbers, right? So you look at
Mhm.
those fundamental numbers. You've got some triple-digit earnings growth, and you also have accelerating revenue growth. So those are things that we really take a look at. Really, my only concern here is just that it's already gone up so much.
Mhm.
And this base was, a flat base, but it was fairly short, so it didn't have much time to kind of, put in time before it started moving up again. But this is something worth taking a look at for
Mhm.
at least a 20-25% move potentially. And one more thing, I just want to just point out, if you go back to the daily, the earnings gap that it had, this is one of the things I really like. When you have such a strong gap up on earnings and it's able to hold that kind of, maintain itself, and really right around that 100 level, it just seemed to kind of gravitate towards that, and now it's moving above it. So there is still a lot to like here, both on the fundamental and the technical side.
Mhm. Bullish action, no doubt. And then we also have these huge blue
Yeah.
volume spikes as well. So a lot of institutional money flowing into this name as
And
well.
you got the volume today with the breakout. And so again, just as you said, that is something that we like to see because it's that evidence of institutional involvement.
And elsewhere, let's take a look at BRKS, Brooks Automation. Justin, you mentioned the strength in semis. So let's take a look at a semiconductor equipment stock. Although BRKS did finish off of its highs for the day, a little bit of resistance around this cup with handle buy point here. It still is looking pretty compelling at these levels.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have to be aware when something does that action, it can happen, so it can kind of test that area and not go through it. Now, the volume here was average, but that was pretty considerable, considering what it's been doing lately. If you just like to look down below and see how a lot of the action here has been below average, today's action was average. So yeah, I'm looking for this to get back above that 103.69 level. We add 10 cents to the high of the handle, and that's how we use our buy point. So it did get above there briefly today, couldn't hold it, but there is still strength in this area. So Brooks Automation is just one among many that is on my radar. It seems like the semiconductors are a group that is helping to lead the NASDAQ higher. And you can see that just by looking at SMH, which is often, one of the, ETFs that we use to kind of get a sense of what's happening in the semiconductor industry. And, the Van Eck Vectors Semiconductor SMH, that's looking like it's setting up as well for a potential breakout. And there's a lot of names in there. So it's not like Brooks Automation is the only one. We've been talking about ASML, AMAT, LRCX, there's just a whole host of stocks that have been setting up, and a lot of those, well, NVIDIA, a lot of those have been breaking out to new highs, and it's definitely an area you want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, a lot to like in this area. So we're going to keep close watch for
and the fundamentals are there too.
More action. Yes, the fundamentals to back it up.
Right. So this is not just the old cyclical play. This has been having some steady growth in a lot of these names, and so it's definitely a different thing. And you and I talked about that with Joe Fahmy just recently as well on our podcast.
We did. So check it out, investors.com/podcast for all the details there. And as Justin mentioned, we really need to keep our finger on the pulse of the IPO market, see what's going on there. And FIGS, FIGS, is one to watch here, Justin. The apparel clothing manufacturing group ranked 47 out of 197. A lot of apparel retail names we've been gravitating towards. So it looks like we could potentially be on breakout watch here for FIGS.
Yeah, and here again, this is one of those Peter Lynch ideas, right? You kind of go with what you're seeing on your credit card statements and things like that. Now, I haven't seen figs on my credit card statement yet, but my daughter just became a dental assistant, so she's working with kids a lot of times, so she's looking for kind of cute little pediatric scrubs to be putting on when she's working in the back of the house, and she's mentioning some of these things, and she wants to be fashionable. There's like Grey's Anatomy scrubs that you can buy, and figs is all about that kind of lifestyle. It's why wear scrubs when you can wear figs is their motto. And one of the things that with IPOs, a lot of times you don't necessarily see the earnings and growth, earnings growth there, but figs has it. So granted, these are, coming from a few pennies to, 7 cents in this latest quarter. So you have to put in that perspective with the triple digit earnings growth here, but still it's profitable, it's growing, and it's got some revenue growth there as well. Usually we look at 100 million, annually as kind of a threshold, and it definitely meets that. So this is one, it may not be something that you play right away, because a lot of times IPOs can be a little bit more volatile, as there's a lot of price discovery when they first come out. But it's worth keeping some of these on your radar, because these can be the potential movers for the future.
And it looks like the weekly chart is flagging an IPO base with a buy point at 36.19. As Justin mentioned, we add that 10 cents there. So is that the level? So basically breaking out to new highs, a level at which you would consider figs actionable, or does it feel like that would be pretty much running straight up off the bottom? Would you want it to put in a little bit more time at the levels it's trading at now?
Excellent point, Ali. I'm always a little hesitant when something if you think about it, okay, a move from 30 to 36, that would be, over a 20% move in a very short period of time. So am I going to want to get in, as it crosses above that level? Not necessarily. I think I'd be a little hesitant at that point. But ideal action to me would be a little pause here. Let people kind of digest this a little bit, let them do a little bit more of their due diligence on what this company is about, and then we can see from there. But yeah, I'd like to see a little bit of a pause here, and I'd be hesitant to buy it at that 36 level.
Well, a compelling story here. And, Justin, maybe there's healthcare professionals out there wearing their fig scrubs with Crocs out there. Yeah, I'm sure that's often the case. The fashion statement as of late.
But not the stilettos, because those aren't out yet.
Yeah, probably not the stilettos. But at any rate, Justin, thank you so much for that analysis. And thank you all for tuning in. If you haven't heard yet, this week is IBD Live Free Access Week. So we really hope that you tune in for that, our daily morning live stream. Justin, give us a little bit of your thoughts on the free access week here, and what IBD Live is all about.
Well, it's definitely a chance for people to kind of take a look at what we're about. We give a lot of information. We're analyzing stocks. And again, it's not just about the buy side. You have to be aware of, how to hold some of these. We were talking about Moderna. I mentioned that today as one that I was holding on to, and why I was holding on to it instead of selling it, even though it was down. So we get into a lot of different things, portfolio management, emotions and controlling those. So you've got on the team, we've got, almost all of us have over 20 years experience, and there's just a lot of experience there. We've been doing this for a while, and we want to share that knowledge. And so it really helps get people up that learning curve, and hopefully make more money in the stock market. I think a lot of people during the pandemic, with such a phenomenal year, we're really appreciative of some of the insights we could provide, some of the stocks we would put on their radar, so that they could really take advantage and again, participate, even if they weren't quite sure. Sometimes they had kind of us in their corner, holding their hands to a certain degree.
Couldn't say it better, Justin. Thanks so much for that. So check it out, investors.com/IBD Live. We'll see you there tomorrow morning for another great show, where we also aim to answer as many of the audience's questions as possible. Right. It's an interactive show as well. So we'll see you there, and we'll see you right back here after the close tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.